All right, welcome back, patrons. I'm going to be doing something a little different today. Something I might start doing more on my Patreon. I do watch other channels' content from time to time, and obviously, I will disagree with them, agree or disagree. And I don't want to be known as that guy that's like dunking on other channels or something. That's one of the reasons why I would never do this on my channel. I mean, I might do this on my channel a little bit. Like this is an MTG Goldfish video that I'm essentially going to be reacting to, but obviously I'm going to be doing it not to like dunk on them or anything. I'm going to be doing it to use it as a deck building, a tool for advice for you guys. It's about mana bases. I believe I even might have mentioned this. Someone mentioned it to me, and I think I said something about I watched it. They did a thing about their mana bases and the mana base that they were essentially reacting to a mana base from a deck that someone had made. Boy, do I got a lot of opinions about that. I thought I would go ahead and react to their reactions, mostly just reacting to their mana base. I might cover this actually on my channel. I'm going to do it. I'm not going to do it the same as I am here. I'm sort of winging this, so we'll see how it goes. Okay, so I actually downloaded the video, so it'd be easier to do than trying to do it through my web browser here. And this is I know maybe some of you guys watched it, maybe you didn't. Maybe I should make my head a little smaller. I'm blocking this poor guy out. The new guy, by the way, whoever this new guy is, I like him. We agree on a bunch. He of the four here, he is easily the one I agree with the most. So I'll try not to block out his face.
Around what you were going for in the main deck.
So yeah, if you haven't seen the video,
Deck from Florian Durs.
this is a patron of theirs. I don't know, some guy.
Like an aristocracy Golgari commander, where at the beginning of
Aristocracy?
the ring tempts you, and then when the ring tempts you, you can ramp from an opponent's top of library.
So obviously you guys can go. Maybe I'll move my face over here so I don't block them. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Yeah, we got to be able to see the lands here. So as he said, they're going all in on mana dorks. There is obviously a good reason for that because as I say all the time, I'm not a big fan of mana dorks. Land ramp is preferred. However, if you want to have a heavy creature theme, which of course Smeagol wants your creatures to be dying, so having a Birds of Paradise in play is good early in the game, and if it dies later on, that's fine. I will say though, let's go take a look at the only issue here. I'm gonna have to keep moving my face around. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died in your control this turn, so yeah, it is. If you use your birds as a blocker, that's not going to help here. If you use it for whatever else, it has to die on your turn. That being said, you can use it for, like, if you have, I don't know if he's got a high market. He doesn't have a high market. There's our first huge, huge. And by the way, I like that we have not only a green deck here, but a two-color deck here. So my opinion, I think, matters more. It's a lot tougher for me to put my 2 cents in when it's like a 3, 4, or 5 color deck because I don't build those much and I don't have any myself. In this case, we have a two-color deck, which I got a lot of opinions there. So I think my opinions are more valid with a two-color deck. By the way, they got prices here. Hoo-wee. Look at those prices. I mean, if you got a Bayou, good for you. I definitely wouldn't buy one for a green. Again, two-color green deck. You need a Bayou. I would save your money. There's so many things I don't like about this. Let's see what they have to say though.
And we're gonna go by category, so you can kind of figure out what's going on.
By the way, I will also say, even though I understand the whole mana dork thing because I want creatures in my deck, I still would have, like, he's got crop rotation because why? Field of the Dead. Okay, maybe that's why. Yeah, he has none. He doesn't have. He's got Archer's Charm. That's it. Man, people are just insane with Field of the Dead, eh? Yeah, he doesn't have 3 visits, Nature's Lore, nothing like that. So Definitely, definitely. Even though I would have a few of these, a few mana dorks, sure. Definitely Secure Tribe Elder. Obviously, that's like the best one in the deck because it can again be sacrificed on your turn to get the trigger. And you guys, again, the other reason why this is perfect because I literally just did a Smeagol deck on my channel, and we can very much go check out the. And I remember exactly what I put in there? No, but I do know how I build decks, and I know what I definitely did not put in there. So yeah, let's see what these guys say actually, because I think it's pretty
We're gonna
interesting.
start with the original mana base, and then we'll all kind of just give our takes on the mana base, and then we'll talk about our inclusion. So, 4 fetches, 1 overgrown 2, 3 lands that tap for multiple colors, or 3+ colors. In this case, it doesn't matter because it's a Golgari deck, but Command Tower, City of Brass, Mana Confluence. So two pain and
Insane, insane. And I think I think that Morgan guy again brings this up. Painlands in a green deck, 2-color green deck, Painlands. Why? Honestly, you could very easily do all basic lands in a 2-color green deck and you would easily be able to get away with it. Why are you putting any lands? The only reason I'm even putting a maybe I should not be doing this, but the only reason I'm even putting a Command Tower, I mean, Command Tower has no downside. Overgrown Tomb has a downside. The only reason I put an Overgrown Tomb in is because it has the basic land type, so I can fetch it with my Nature's Lore 3 visits, Wood Elves. Again, I just talked about this in the Deck Doctor video, and I will be I made a little snippet of the when I went on a rant about ramping, because again, I haven't really covered that so much. I covered it in a lot of Deck Doctor videos, but I want to make a video specifically about it, which I'm kind of covering here. I'm covering a lot of it. That little snippet, I'll make sure I put this video out after that so you guys can watch that snippet where I talk about it. And again, the reason why ramping is so good in the Commander format is because it covers 2 scenarios. Scenario number 1 is I'm putting lands into play faster, which is the big one for most people. But the other scenario it covers very easily, of course, is mana fixing. So why do you need so many lands that are giving you
but Command Tower, City of Brass.
like what? Why do you need Why do you need this?
Two pain-inducing lands.
Never, not even in any 2-color deck would I ever play these. Maybe in a 3-color deck. Certainly not in a green deck. You're just hitting your life total for what? Chances are you could very easily just play a swamp or a forest and be fine. So right out of the gate, all of the pain lands he has here, I think he has Llanowar Waste as well, all gone and replaced by basics.
And they actually have a value in this deck.
By the way, you're saving. I won't even bring this up anymore. I'll just say once, you're saving yourself a ton of money on top of that.
And then Urborg and Yavimaya. So those can be considered fixing because they fix the other color.
Again, fixing is not that important in a 2-color green deck. So I'm not going to go out of my way for an Urborg. They're certainly good. You're fixing, sure. But the upside of I'm fixing in a 2-color green deck is entirely minuscule. So is it worth it? $30, $40, $50 cards, whatever these are, is it worth it? I mean, if you got them lying around, sure. I got an Urborg lying around, I'll throw it in my black deck. Any deck that has black, sure, it is better. And I think the nitpicking nerds, I think Yavimaya was their favorite card from Modern Horizons 2. That they had it at number 1. I don't think I'll ever forget that because I thought it was incredibly shocking. Modern Horizons 2, anyone remember that set? I promise you this is not the most popular card in the Commander format for Modern Horizons 2. It certainly isn't the best. I like it, just like Urborg. Urborg obviously Cabal coffers. Yavimaya, there is no coffers scenario. I like it because it gives... if your commander has Forest Walk, it's an auto-include, right? That's why I like it. It gives your opponents forest so you can Forest Walk. Again, the shenanigans you can get into. Both my decks that play Urborg, one is for Cabal Coffers, and the other one is for I want my opponents to have swamps. That's why these guys are good. It's mana fixing. It's just, first of all, it only mana fixes in one color. Secondly, you're in a green deck, right? Urborg better because mana fixing in a black deck is relevant. In a green deck, at the end of the day, it's not worth it at all to run out and grab these cards for a 2-color deck. unless you have a specific reason to do so, in my opinion.
Color. For utility slash spell lands, they have a Boseiju. They're green, so they play.
Zeju is, and again, as I said when the channel lands first came out in Neon Dynasty, auto includes for me. There's no reason not to play them. I have 5 decks. How many white decks do I have now? I finally ran out of Eganjos. I bought, I believe, however many copies I bought. Let's find out because I have them in all my white decks. I have my 3 mono white decks, my Boros deck, my 2 Selesnya decks, and my 2 Azorius. That's how many white decks I have. Oh, and my black white deck now too. I have 9 decks with white in them. And I think I have a Ganjo in all of them. I bought so many copies because everyone's like, oh, that's the worst one. I love it. I think it's great. So I just bought a ton of copies because I figured eventually it was like $2 or something. So I think I have Ganjo in all of them. Did I actually buy 9 copies of that card? I don't know. Maybe 8. I don't know if I have all of them, but I love the channel lands. There's 0 downside other than it's a non-basic land. Doesn't enter the battlefield tapped, gives you the color you need, and also, of course, the channel ability is fantastic. Field of the Dead, on the other hand, I think, as I said in the Discord the other day, is the most overrated land in the entire format. And not only is it, again, in my opinion, it's overrated. And I just made a video about this. I'm quite certain that'll be appearing on the channel or maybe already has. But people, as you see from this guy's mana base, will actually build around it. They'll actually start putting more differently named lands in their deck just to turn on their Field of the Dead. Okay, so now your deck's built around Field of the Dead? I mean, first of all, if you're playing Field of the Dead is actually not a bad addition in a Smeagol deck because Smeagol gets your opponent's lands. So now I don't, even though it is a good inclusion, why am I trying to build around it? It's completely unnecessary. But so in this deck, it's actually not bad, but in most decks, not so much.
Field of the Dead, there's a Shizo.
I mean, it just makes 2/2 zombies. Again, unless you're doing a scape shift, I put 20 lands in play all at once. In most decks, it's I play a land on my turn, maybe, and then I make a zombie later in the game. And it's like, which you're probably going to just use as a chump blocker. Are you playing zombie tribal? Does it at all fit what you're doing? Overrated for sure.
Takenuma.
Shizu is really weird here. I think they bring this up because even though, again, not really any downside, you're going to be attacking with your commander in a Smeagol deck? Nope, never going to happen. I would put a Shizu in a deck where I actually want to attack with my commander. I wouldn't waste my time otherwise. Takenuma, again, channel and auto include.
And an Urza's Cave.
This guy, again, I would imagine, again, people are so high on Field of the Dead. I think that this guy is putting Urza's Cave, Crop Rotation, and Archer's Charm just in his deck. Just to get Field of the Dead, which is nuts.
So something that like specifically works really well with their commanders, Phyrexian Tower. That's a land.
Obviously, again, he should have high market as well.
13 basics, split between forest and swamp.
I commented on this video because I think Seth, he hates basic lands. I can't even believe what he says in this video. My lands deck in particular, I have Winds of Abandon, Path to Exile, Settle the Wreckage. All 3 of those, you have to go fetch a basic land. So what do you get? And I think I commented on the video maybe that Winds of Abandon, people need to start playing that card more because nobody plays basic lands anymore. So I exile all your creatures and you get no lands. Works good for me, right? Pretty good in my opinion. So and again, this is going to be a big takeaway from the video. I don't know how long I'm going to go here, but start putting more basic land. I'm encouraging my patrons, put more basic lands in your deck and put more non-basic land hate, whether it be Winds of Abandon, Path to Exile, Settle the Wreckage, stuff that would normally give your opponent or Assassin's Trophy would be another one, or actual, Blood Moon effects, stuff like that. Go nuts. I don't care.
And then snow-covered and non-snow covered.
And again, this guy just throwing snow-covered. I mean, it doesn't, there's not really a drawback, but just putting snow-covered lands in your deck for just to turn on your Field of the Dead is pretty funny, I think.
Field of the Dead. So what do we think about this mana base?
I will just say the look at the cost here. I mean, obviously Bayou, but Bozages $33. Oof. City of Brass. Like again, why would you spend $15 on that to do that? Even the pathway, $5, not even necessary. Mana Confluence is $40. Why would you? Why would you waste the money? Off color fetches? No. Again, you guys know how I feel about off color fetches. Unless there's a specific reason, like you're playing my Verac idea or something like that, or you need, or landfall decks, or I want lands in my graveyard. This guy obviously is not doing that. He's probably doing it because someone told him that fetch lands are really good and it thins out your deck. I guarantee you that's why he's doing it. Yeah, he's got a few off color fetches. Tainted Wood, is that the one that only taps for green if you have a swamp and only taps for black if you have a forest or something, or vice versa? I think.
13 basics is wild to me. Like that's
When I first heard him say that, let's go back because that this is really important.
34 lands and 13 basics is wild to me. Like
And I was thinking when he said that, I was like, which part is wild? He probably thinks 34 lands isn't enough. For me, it's more than enough because you're not only are you in green, you're stealing your opponent's lands. Your commander is ramp. Again, like I say all the time, how much ramp do I put in my deck? How much card draw? How much removal? If your commander's Tatiova, you don't put any card draw in your deck because your commander does it so easily. If you're playing Smeagol, you need even, not only does your commander only cost 3, so you can get it out on turn 2 with a first turn mana dork, but also your commander ramps. So you need even, I don't even know if I would put 33 lands, okay? But the 13 basics part, I was like, yeah, 13 basics is not enough, that's for sure.
that's about like 4 or 5 lands less than I would really be comfortable playing. Even
4 or 5? You put 38, 39 lands in your deck? Nuts. But there's a reason why.
considering you have mana dorks and a commander that can kind of ramp, so I just
Not kinda ramp, he literally does that. That's what his commander does.
wouldn't be comfortable going that low. And then when you consider you're already at 34 lands,
But these guys, the reason these guys play a ton of lands for a very specific reason.
13 basics, that's so many. That's like a third of your mana.
So many. What? I don't know if I've ever made a 2-color deck with less than 13 basics. I don't think that's ever happened. Usually it's about 20. Usually I put about 10 of each. He thinks 13 basics is insane. For a green deck, by the way, and even more so, again, when we're talking about ramp, you talk about green and you talk about everything else. For a green deck, you're searching for basic land. And again, this guy doesn't have any land search, which I think is insane. But if you're making a green deck, what are you getting with your rampant growth? What are you getting with your Sakura Tribe Elder? What are you getting with your, any of your ramp? You need, almost assuredly, it's going to be basic lands that your ramp is fetching. So got to put them in there. Got to put more than enough in there.
Mana base, or more than a third of your mana base, is basic land. So that's the stuff that stood out to me. The other thing that stood out is apparently our viewers don't believe in MDFCs like we do, or I do at least. Like there's a single spell land, and when you get to our
Not as much as these guys are insane when it comes to MDFCs. I would imagine because they keep printing them, at some point these guys' decks is going to be like half MDFCs.
Manabases, you'll see there's just this huge column of like.
So off the top of my head, Balagid Recovery is the green one that I put probably in all my green decks because it is pretty ridiculous, and Malika Rebirth is the one I put in all my black decks. That to me, Malika Rebirth is probably my favorite out of all the MDFCs. Because for 1 mana, you can possibly get a really powerful effect, right? Instant speed, I save my commander. So in this deck, off the top of my head, yeah, I would put Malika Rebirth and Balagid Recovery. So 2.
Spell lands that everyone's playing, so yeah. It seems functional.
These guys, however, put literally every single one they can get their hands on. It's pretty nuts.
There's not a lot of lands in there that I'm like, oh my god, I wouldn't play that. The 2 that I would really say I would never put in my deck would, in a 2-color deck, I don't think I would ever play City of Brass and Mana Confluence.
Well, we agree there.
I would play a basic over those lands in a 2-color deck, and then I would not be caught dead playing a pathway. I just hate pathways.
Yeah, I'm not a big
But
fan of
that's more
pathways
personal
either.
of
I might have that in my
personal
Boros deck,
but
and that's
otherwise,
it.
it's all lands that I would be happy having in my deck.
Yeah, I will actually want to go to that point because I feel like what they did, they built the deck very smartly. I've seen Smeagol in action, I have a friend who plays Smeagol pretty often, and having a turn 2 Smeagol as opposed to a turn 3 Smeagol is like night and day difference in terms of tempo, momentum, and everything. That
Again, I would, sure, but what do I say about getting your commander out super fast and getting right? Sounds good on, looks good on paper, but it might just make it. It might make it an easy target for your opponent's swords to plowshares in the first couple of turns, right? And by the way, man, the number one word, by the way, you guys, that I am sick and tired of hearing in the commander format is tempo. Oh man, am I sick and tired of tempo is super important in modern and legacy. Super important. You always want to be doing something on your turn. The land drops, and turn one, I have a play. Turn two, I have a play. Turn three, I have a play. That kind of stuff. That's why mana curve is so important. And mana curve is important, but tempo is not that important in the commander format. I can't count how many times I've seen someone sit there and do nothing for like 5 turns and then win the game. Why is tempo so important? Right? Again, it's not. Getting your commander out fast is not that important. It is. I mean, look at the game that I just put up on the Patreon. I mean, it's probably a few weeks old now, but I believe, spoiler alert, it was Sword that won. He was literally not doing anything the whole game, right? No offense, but he wasn't doing much. He didn't seem like he was in it, right? In fact, it was mostly the two other guys, not so much me either. And he ends up pulling out the win at the last second, right? So did tempo matter there? Nope. He got the win despite not, I mean, certainly his tempo was not good, but yet he still won the game, right? That's Commander. All these other things, tempo and these things that people bring in from other formats are just not, that doesn't apply. Not nearly as much anyway, right? I'm going to skip ahead anyway to look at their lands.
Right? Like there's no real reason for that, right? You could actually just keep the same ratio
6.
and convert those 6 swamps into 6 more forests to ensure the turn 1
That's a good point.
mana door.
Yeah,
But
that's a
also,
good point. You and another thing I do when I'm making a green deck, I always have more forests than the other whatever. If I'm making a 3-color deck, let's say it's a teamer deck, I'm going to have more forests than I have mountains or islands, because obviously the forests are used to ramp and fix in the other colors. Obviously, early in the game, you want a first turn forest, not a first turn island or mountain, right? And so whenever you're playing a green deck, it's almost guaranteed that you're going to have more forest than any other basic land. And probably in a white deck, same thing, because white is, again, white's second best at ramping. It does it pretty good. Chances are, if you're making like a Boros deck, you're going to have way more white cards in there than red. If you're making an Azorius deck, you're going to have more white cards than blue. So you're going to have likely more planes than you are those other ones.
well, there's like other dual lands that don't ping you that are suitable for this. Like you can play the fast land here.
Yeah.
And then you can also play like
I never play these, the Blooming Marsh ones. I play these in Modern always. Unless you control 2, it enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or fewer lands. So obviously that's good on turn 1, 2, or 3, and then after that it's guaranteed going to come into play tapped. No, the reverse ones that are enter the battlefield tapped if you control 2 or fewer lands, those ones are better because again, you don't need to get out of the gate fast. I would rather make a land drop on turn 5 and have it not. Think about it, dude. How important it is for me to have a land drop on turn 1 and have it be untapped. I guess if I want to play my first turn Soul Ring, but again, now you're going against rule 1 for me, right? It's much more important for me to have a land drop on turn 5 that isn't tapped because I probably want to do a bunch of stuff. That's a really important point in the game. Turn 1's actually not that important in a commander game. Everyone thinks it is, but it's not. Turn 5, turn 6, those are hugely important turns in a commander game, right? Lots of stuff is happening. Everyone's got stuff on board. You're probably being attacked. You're probably trying to get your game plan together. That's when you want lands coming into play untapped, right?
Prismatic Vista, like more fetches that are not necessarily like the 2-color fetches.
Obviously, I would put 0 fetches in any green deck, unless there was a specific reason. Varak, Landfall, whatever. 0 fetches in a green deck. There's no reason for it. Not, I wouldn't even pay. Even the pay 1 life to me is not even worth it.
But also, it's not that important to play your commander on curve. Like everyone
No,
talks about
it's
like,
not. Good point.
hey, you ramp a land, you get wrapped, you're
No.
still down a land, right? Like you need to set up.
That's why land, as I say all the time, land ramp is superior to everything because someone's going to board wipe and your lands are going nowhere, right?
The one that's okay, I think, is Line War Waste because it usually only has to ping you like once, maybe twice, and then the rest of the game it can tap for
That's
combos.
okay, yeah.
That's no
See, he
way.
makes a good point there. I'm more okay with Llanowar Waste because at least you have the non-pain option. That's why I never play Ancient Tomb or Mana Confluence or City of Brass. I don't put those lands in any decks ever because there is no other option. And the Horizon Canopy cycle, whatever they call that, Nurturing Peatland would be the one here. I have that in my black green deck because again, it just fits what I'm doing. I can tutor for lands if I desperately need card draw. I can go get it. I can play it from my graveyard. Right? There's lots of reasons to put it in there, but I likely won't be tapping it much. I probably will more likely just sack it to get a card draw off of it. Right? It's more card draw than it is a land. Here he makes a good point. Too many pain lands in this deck, and at least Llanowar Wastes, you have the option. Whereas with Mana Confluence and City of Brass, you do not.
That is a big standout. That I
So
know
here you
a
go.
lot of
Here they go with the
people
MDFCs now.
card draw.
Thought consumption.
No, it's Disciple of Freyalise. Disciple of Freyalise, it's like 6-drop, ETB, sack a creature, then you gain life and draw cards equal to that creature's power. In a Smeagol Nazgul deck, the Nazguls get very large very quickly. And it's
I guess. I don't know about
so
very
wants to
quickly,
be
but yeah.
sacrificing them to recur them over and over again because they have an ETB, the Ring Tempsu, which grows all the Nazgul and stuff like that. So, by like turn 5, turn 6, you have a Nazgul on the board, it's like a 5/5, it's a 6/6 or whatever. You are super happy to just play Disciple Frailes, draw 5 or 6 cards, also gains life
Okay.
too, to offset all the pinging that's happening.
By the way, I was the hugest fan of Disciple of Freyalise when it came out. I actually grabbed a copy for my Shanna deck, and I took it out. 6 mana is a lot. 6 mana. It is good, and sure I can play it as a land, but man, 6 mana is a lot for that effect. There's so many better options. I already have all the better options in that deck, and I found that I just didn't really want to use it because 6 mana is a lot. And how much card draw do you need to get off of this to make it worth it? Is 3 worth it? Doesn't really seem like it, right? So 6 mana is a lot. 3 green too.
So I consider that like I would hold on to this card. I'd rather hold on to this card than actually play it as a land.
Which is the other problem with MDFCs. And again, I'm sure you guys have all run into this problem. And I mean, it's not a bad problem to have, right? But you find yourself holding on to them. You don't want to play them as a land, right? Like my Sajiri Shelter or my Kabiri Takedown, which I just literally played in the game last night. I ended up playing both of them face down, which I was like, oh, I really didn't want to do that. And not only did I not want to do it, but they were both tapped when they entered the battlefield. So it's like, and I started thinking, man, are these really, should I be putting these in all my decks? Should I be? Because you find yourself sometimes not playing them, even though you should be making a land drop, you don't play them because you want, especially again, Disciple of Freyalise being a 6 mana card and Sea Gate Restoration is the other great example of that. Because they're so expensive, how long are you going to hang on to them? How long are you going to hang on to them and not make land drops because you want to use the front side effect? So it's a little bit of a trap. It is.
So that's why I want a higher link cap. And then also fight spells. Again, the Nazguls are very, very big. The fight spells are incredibly efficient with them too. So why not up your interaction count by running like Callie Ambush?
Again, Kalni Ambush is one that I was like, okay, that's an easy slot into most decks. I was a fan of Bridgeworks Battle, but again, the sorcery speed does actually make kind of a big difference. It really does. And this is another, I did not get this for my Questing Beast deck. Did I? I don't think I did. Because I was like, I got enough fight effects. I don't need more fight effects. And the fact that it's a land on the back, again, I'm curious to know. These guys seem like they are putting because what Seth said is I would take out a bunch of basics and put MDFCs. Okay, so you're direct replacing your basic lands with MDFCs. And here's the big takeaway here. Again, I'm becoming very anti MDFC, and I will be talking about that in my Manabases video. And I, again, giving you guys this insight first. I'm not saying you shouldn't play them, okay? However, what's the purposes of lands in your deck, guys? And again, these guys are so huge on non-basic lands and get rid of basics. What's the purpose? The primary purpose of a land in your deck is to cast your spells. Shouldn't that be your concern first? Shouldn't your primary concern for your lands in your deck be, I need to cast spells, not what utility is it giving me? Or can I cast it as a spell later in the game? So I'm really like, I think they made a video too a little while ago talking about why would you play basics at all? They have no downside, zero downside. It is a land that gives you the color you need, that is easily fetchable if you're in green or possibly white, right? And it has zero downside. It always comes into play untapped. It doesn't deal you damage, and it gives you the color you're looking for. It's giving you everything you need. That's why you play it, right? It's pretty simple.
Bounce lands.
So now we get into bounce lands, which again,
because we all included a Golgari Rot.
they all put Golgari Rot Farm in their list, right? And why? Again, why are they playing? I would never put this in a green deck. It's too slow. It's not ramp. Do you have something that is untapping your lands? If I have an untapping theme, and in fact, I ended up putting Fate Stitcher in my, I actually have that tiller as well, the artifact tiller in my Niambi deck, because I realized, okay, I do have, and obviously specifically I want the Zorius Chancery and those kinds of lands in there. So because I have a lot of lands that tap for more than 1 mana, having untappers in there is great. Obviously my commander has a tap ability as well, so it's worth it for me there. Why are you putting a Golgari Rot Farm in your commander deck, in your green deck? You don't need the mana fixing. Green does that really well. It's not ramp. And in fact, most of the time it will even slow you down, right? The reason why these guys are now becoming huge fans, and now everyone else is going back to, again, people sort of got away from them. It is kind of mana fixing, but you don't need that in a green deck. I never play green bounce lands. These guys are loving them. Why? Because I can play my Disciple of Freylease earlier in the game and then pick it up later. Okay, but now you're down a land because you're playing the front side. Keep that in mind, right? So now, not only is it not ramp, you're going in the reverse direction. But again, it might be good. It might be a great play. It might be a game-saving play. Maybe you can pick up a removal spell, right? And use it later on in the game. That's so fringe, man. That is so fringe. Again, now you're building your deck around these fringe scenarios. It's just like the Field of the Dead thing. Yeah, put Field of the Dead in my deck and a lot of differently named lands, because maybe later in the game I'll get a Field of the Dead out and I'll start cranking out zombie tokens. Yeah, maybe. Or maybe I'll be able to play my bounce land and pick up my Seagate Restoration or my really great, maybe. But again, it's another land that enters the battlefield tapped. So now you're hitting yourself doubly by putting a bunch of MDFCs. And of course, most of them enter the battlefield tapped, or you have to pay 3 life, which again also goes after your life total. Take it into consideration. Now you have more lands that enter the battlefield tapped, and then the bounce land also enters the battlefield tapped, right? It's so funny to me that these guys, and I talked about this in the other video I did of theirs. I think Richard made that one. It was a Jeskai mana base. And I'm like, look at how many lands come into play tapped. How many lands do you want to see in your opening hand? When these guys talk about all the MDFCs, the bounce lands, all that, what's in your opening hand, guys? You want to have a great, you're fast out of the gate. So that first turn birds or mana dork that you want to get out on turn 1 so badly. Again, a lot of things these guys are saying just kind of conflict. I know there is 4 separate people here, but your first turn birds or mana dork that you want to play, how are you getting that out on turn 1, right? The number one thing I want to see in my opening hand for a green deck is a basic forest. Again, no drawbacks. It doesn't enter the battlefield tapped, right? And that means, and maybe I don't have a first turn play, but I also have a scry land in my opening hand, right? And again, I'm playing a green deck, so I don't even care if I only have 2 lands, because I also have a Skur Tribe Elder in my hand, right? So what I want to see is a basic forest, because then I can scry land turn 1, turn 2 I can play my basic forest, and then I get I'm off. That's it. I'm away. I'm off to the races. I can play my Sakura Tribe Elder, my 3 Visits, Nature's Lore, Rampant Growth, Arcane Signet, whatever. I'm off to the races. So I don't want to see. Who wants to see a bounce land in their opening hand? I sure don't. All the MDFCs, again, and I think these guys are replacing their basic lands with MDFCs. That's a whole lot of crap that you do not want to see in your opening hand, in my opinion.
But Tomer, your tempo, like you're talking about tempo, and then you put Golgari Rock Farm, but also myself, Seth, and Morgan included Guildless Commons, and then Seth and I
Insane.
Archway as well. So we all have different tolerances for bounce.
Again, guys, these I can't believe they're putting the colorless bounce lands in there. That's insane. There's no chance you're getting the surveil off of that. Guys, this, and I've seen you guys, some of you guys play Guildless Commons. Maybe there's a specific reason. Maybe you just want to make land drops. It is not ramp. It is not ramp, okay? It does not make your lands come out faster, okay? In a green deck, it's completely unnecessary. Also, in this case, it's colorless mana, which that might cause you some issues as well. Talked about that with Ancient Tomb. Yeah, Ancient Tomb's great. It's adding 2 mana, but it's colorless. So that might make things a little difficult for you, right? And again, every deck's already got a Soul Ring, which is adding 2 colorless mana as well. I've seen a lot of people run into this problem, and I don't think they quite figure out in their head, hey, maybe I have too many things adding colorless mana. This is why even in a 5-color deck, I don't like a Soul Ring in a 5-color deck, because probably a lot of times you're just going to be sitting there doing nothing. Cast your commander later in the game when it has commander tax, right? I see people put a Soul Ring in their Atraxa deck, and I'm thinking, what are you going to be using that for? It's not going to be casting your commander. I mean, it's certainly good, but might not be as good in a 4-color deck as you think it is, right? Again, Soul Ring is way better in a mono-color deck or a 2-color deck. This is insane, in my opinion. And again, these guys are, I think, just doing this to pick up their... Because what other reason is it? It's only adding colorless mana, enters the battlefield tapped. Those are 2 things you want to avoid with your mana base. And then also, of course, you have to pick up a land, which basically evens out. And by the way, another thing, prime target for my Ghost Quarter. Just saying, all these people that love all these bounce lands, man, that's just a gimme with my Ghost Quarter or my Wasteland. That's a blowout, right? That's an easy target. This is why I like Lotus Field, because it has hexproof. These things are easy targets for my Ghost Quarter.
Lands here. Why the Rot Farm, but not the Guildless Commons, Tomer?
Because Rot Farm adds... I would play none of them, but at least Rot Farm gives you the colors you need, guys. Holy cow.
I mean, it's the best out of them in a vacuum, right?
It's the best out of them in a vacuum, yep.
Colors and other ones don't. So if you could only run one, you run that. But do I want too many top lands? No.
No, you don't.
So
I mean, he's making tons of sense here. Dude, I can't even believe some of these things happening in this video are shocking to me. I couldn't even believe some of the things I was seeing. 3 lands bounce lands that enter the battlefield tap where you don't need mana fixing and you don't need ramp. So again, as far as I can tell, they only play them to pick up their MDFCs, which is crazy.
one bounce land. Like I said, I wanted to maintain the 90% chance of turn 1 land or out, and so I kept it there. I could.
Again, at least he's staying consistent. He wants his turn 1 mana dork, so don't put so many tap lands in, don't put so many bounce lands in. That makes sense. So I will skip ahead to where they actually go over the lands that they are adding, which I think is pretty crazy.
Color fixing. The rest of the color fixing is interesting. So the original deck ran 2...
Again, why is color fixing so important? You're in a green. You're in green, and it's only a 2-color deck. You could put all basic lands, and you would have no problem color fixing.
2, 4, 6.
Like, are you playing a Phyrexian Obliterator or a Primaclux? What's that? Is that the guy with all the green mana symbols? Like, why do you need Yavimaya so badly? Do you have a Primaclux in your deck? What's the big deal here? Like, casting stuff should not be an issue at all in a 2-color deck, especially if it's green.
8 additional color fixing. So
honestly, I think that if I was making a Boros deck, I think I could easily get away with just having basic lands. I think I'd be fine. You still got mana. You still got mana rocks, right? You still have land search. Although I will say again, just like with the overgrown tomb situation, I would be inclined to at least put a Sacred Foundry in my Boros deck because I know I can go get it with a Deep Gnome Terramancer or something like that, right? Or a Knight of the White Orchid. So it is at least having one or two of those options. Again, like I say all the time, and I said in that video, if I'm making a 3-color deck, and especially if it's green or white, I want the Triome in there because I know I can go fetch it with something, right?
Consider color fixing things at tap for like. I'm running 6. Seth's running 4. 2, 4, 6, 7. Tover 7. Morgan 7.
So this is like their mana fixing, they're calling it.
Morgan Yamamaya. And then we chose. Here are the good ones. The good
I mean, I guess Urborg and Yavimaya, if money's not an issue, okay, sure.
duels are the Undergrowth Stadium. That's the battle bond.
Save your money, though.
We all put it. And then Lana War.
Battle Bond lands are almost an auto include. Again, there's not really, you don't need it. I don't recommend you run out and buy it for your green deck, but definitely there's almost no downside other than when it's me and one guy left on turn 10, they come into play tapped, but again, that's fine. I don't play pain lands at all, by the way. I have the OG pain lands. I have in 0 decks. I have Mana Confluence and City of Brass in 0 decks. As you guys probably know from if you watch the decks that I make and you look at the mana bases, you'll see that I never use them. I don't think that they're necessary.
There's Deathcap Glade, which I played in Woodland Cemetery.
Pause. These guys, the check lands, when they enter the battlefield unless you control a swamp or forest, I love those. Those are pretty much auto includes for me in 2-color decks. It's almost a guarantee. Okay. On turn 1, again, I'm thinking about turn 1. Again, for the guys that are so concerned about getting out of the gate fast, they don't seem so concerned about it here. On turn 1, I have this in my hand and a basic land. I'm golden. I mean, it's win-win. If I don't have a first turn play, I can play this. Play my Woodland Cemetery. It enters the battlefield tapped because I don't care if it is tapped. And then for the rest of the game, it's untapping normally. Again, you guys have to remember, for the rest of the game, this is giving me the mana I need, and it has 0 downside, whereas the Llanowar Waste might be doing me damage at some point. Likely will be, right? That's why a Woodland Cemetery is far superior to a Llanowar Waste. Even just a land that enters the battlefield tapped all the time and gives me black and green is far superior. It's far superior to an Evolving Wilds, because Evolving Wilds only gives me 1 color, and it's far superior to a Llanowar Waste because a Llanowar Waste will be dealing me damage likely throughout the entire game. Love these guys. Again, and by the way, turn 2, I play my forest or swamp first, then I can cast something, and then on turn 2, it enters the battlefield untapped. I don't know if I ever have those things enter the battlefield tapped. This guy, these are the ones I was talking about. Unless you control 2 or more lands, those are the ones I actually like. Because entering the battlefield tapped on turn 1, I don't care that much about. I would rather have them. And again, I know maybe it sounds hypocritical there. The Woodland Cemetery, that ain't entering the battle. Again, after like turn 2, there's 0 chance, I guess, unless you play a zillion. Again, another downside for playing a zillion MDFCs and non-basic lands is maybe your Woodland Cemetery will enter the battlefield tapped on turn 4 or 5. In any of my decks, not possible. It is not possible that my check land is entering the battlefield tapped on turn 4 or 5 or anywhere beyond that. No chance, right? So another reason to play more basic lands, I guess. These ones are pretty good too. I actually don't mind these ones.
The slow land, and then one of them is a check land.
A slow land, apparently they call them. This is where we're really gonna have some disagreement. I'm gonna put myself right in the middle. This is where we're really gonna have some disagreement here. They call them spell lands, I guess. So a land that has a spell in the back, right?
From the normal mana base. So spell and utility lands. So what do we do when we cut all the color fixing and all the basic?
By the way, spell lands and utility lands aren't the same, not even close. They are complete opposites, actually, because as someone very poignantly brought up about the new Bajuka Bog. I can't remember who I was watching, but the MDFC land from Modern Horizons 3 that is I think it's a goblin on the front, and it's what is it? It's a land on the back, and on the front it's a creature that exiles a graveyard. And just put that in over a Bajuka Bog, right? No, a Bajuka again. What matters most? Why are you putting lands in your deck? Are you putting lands in your deck to kill creatures and draw cards? No, you're putting lands in your deck to cast stuff. Remember that, guys. That is the most important takeaway from this video. I have to remember to bring that up when I do this on my channel. The most important part of your lands is to cast stuff. So your Bajuka Bog will enter the battlefield, exile someone's graveyard, and then you can just tap it for land for the rest of the game. With your Goblin guy, you have to make a choice. How important it is, right? This is why MDFCs are not always the best option. Do I want to add mana? Do I need a land drop? Or do I want to exile a graveyard? There's a tough choice there to be made, right?
We shove them full of another deck. Like, here's a deck's worth of
And these guys are
actions.
bonkers
So the original deck had
with
one
when it comes
spell,
to
which is Boseiju.
MDFC lands. Okay, so they refer to Boseiju as a spell land as well. Maybe I would agree with that because again, unlike a Bajuka Bog where you get both, again, that's the important distinction. Are you getting both or are you getting one or the other? With the channel lands, again, I guess there would be the one downside to the channel lands is like an MDFC, I have to decide, am I going to, and man, I have a tough time with a Boseiju actually playing it as a land. I don't like playing my Iganjus either. Are you going to play it as a land or are you going to channel it? You don't get both. Whereas with what I would consider a utility land, like they don't have any? Oh, these are all the spell lands. Okay. A utility land like a Scavenger Grounds maybe, or Ghost Quarter, even though they sacrifice themselves, they're sitting there at it. My Scavenger Grounds is tapping for mana every single turn. It's doing its job. And then when I really need to, I can sacrifice the exile graveyards, right? Huge difference there.
Morgan has 4 spell lands. The rest of us have this tome, which I can't even count. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Like 9 each.
Like Agadeem's Awakening? You're just going to put that in any deck? Really? Is it that good? That's okay.
Okay, and it's
Again, the channel, for me, Takenuma and Boseiju go in there for sure. Maybe Tangled Florahedron, because again, it is a creature and you kind of do want creatures in play to get those dice triggers. I mean, I'll go through the list. Definitely Takenuma and Boseiju. Sure, maybe. Disciple of Frelus is a maybe. Agadeem's Awakening, no, that's too much. Balagud Recovery and Malakuri Birth are the 2 that I already said I would likely put in there. And I guess, yeah, Revitalizing Repast is, again, like I said in my Modern Horizons 3 video, it's kind of hard not to put it in there. But again, look at how many you got. Man, that's a lot. That's a lot of lands that you don't actually want to play as lands. You actually want to either channel them or cast as spells. Keep that in mind.
Kamigawa utility land. So Boseiju, Takenuma.
And look at
And
these
then
guys.
You have the original MBFCs like Agadeem's Awakening in there.
Again, Bogart Trawler, I think, is the graveyard one. Definitely wouldn't do that. Where's your Bajuka Bog? Fell the Profane, I think, and Hagar Mauling are both removal spells. Guys, you're in Golgari. You're in black and green. Why do you so desperately, like, you're probably just not playing. I'm guessing these guys just don't play enough removal. So they have their MDFC land. I've put those in 0 decks. I believe Hagar Mauling and Fell the Profane are both the destroy a creature. I've never put those on a deck because I'm in a black deck already and moving creatures is not an issue, right? So, and again, I guess, again, we're jumping through a lot of hoops here, but their thinking is, oh, Fell the Profane is better because I can play it as a land early in the game, then bounce land, pick it up later, and use it as a removal spell. Okay, roll the dice on that play, I guess. Yeah.
Fell the
Nah.
Profane. I looked at the original list. There's a lot of spot removal in it, so I cut.
Yeah.
removal at the
Plus,
end.
these are bad, right? Like, these are bad removal spells. I know the what if scenario is nice to play out in your head, but 4 mana, like this is actually a bad removal spell, and Hagar Mauling is also a bad removal spell. This spell costs 1 less to cast if an opponent controls no basic lands. I mean, I guess against these guys that's better, but that almost never happens. So it's probably likely going to be a 4 mana destroy a creature, which is terrible. You know, and I guess if you're in the desperate situation, but fringe scenario, not building my deck around that.
I will say though, like, because we increased the number of lands in the deck, I think this is one of the easiest ways to do that. Is like you play a couple of the removal MDFCs, and then you can cut a couple of the non-MDFC removal spells to help.
I mean, I'll just say this. I know, again, it sounds like a nice scenario, but again, we let's play this scenario out. I draw Fell the Profane off the top of my library on turn 6, right? And I'm like, oh, good, thank goodness. I desperately need to get rid of that creature. So now I don't make a land drop because obviously Fell the Profane is taking a land slot, and then I'm using a bad removal spell, 4 mana, to get rid of a creature. If you're in that situation, maybe there's some other thing, right? You need to be putting more removal in your deck if you're in that situation. I would rather just have I'll make up my normal land drop, and then also I already have a removal spell in my hand because I put enough in my deck. That to me is a way better situation. Again, this is the situation. This is the Dam situation, right? And why I don't like Dam is because Dam, I know people love oh, look at the options I have. Dam is a bad removal spell for target creature, and it's a bad board wipe because for me, Wrath of God is not good enough to put in a commander deck. That's you have two options, but both of those options are not good. MDFC lands are the same way. This is a bad removal spell, and also it's not a good land on the back either. We're skipping ahead to now we're in the utility lands, so we're skipping ahead to that.
Original deck had Shizo, and I couldn't
Yeah.
figure out why.
Right.
Shizo gives a legendary.
No reason for that. You
and
don't want to be attacking with
that's
your
basically
commander, I
any
don't think.
creature in the
Probably.
deck because they have the ring Tempsy, right? So they can turn anything legendary. But I'm like,
Yeah, okay, I didn't think of that, but still.
Like, I don't know what we're trying to do with the Shizo that makes it worth the slot. So
Yeah, it's not worth
that one I
it.
don't understand.
Again, it's not bad, but
because it's like untapped and it makes colored mana, right? So the cost of playing it's pretty low. I didn't actually play it, but well,
I don't know. I didn't check if he had any actual big creatures in his deck. Maybe he did. It might be worth it with that ring tempting. That is kind of neat interaction
I
there.
guess that's true. It does kind of blow up the mana dork theory, but I feel like those lands are a little bit underrated, even though they're not super strong. The fact that they come into play untapped and make
I like them. The original Kamigawa lands, I like them.
I didn't play it, but I don't think it's.
I play them in most of my decks,
I-
unless there's zero reason to, right?
But I feel like that's not strong enough in my opinion for it to be.
Yeah, I wouldn't. In this situation, I probably wouldn't make room for a Shizu.
Is super conservative here, but he has an interesting choice in here. He has a Baron War, and it's trying to
That's the
It's the green one. It's the green
Yeah.
one, yeah.
Why this?
Yeah, so I don't play cycling lands. Obviously, if you're playing a cycling deck, a discard deck, anything like that, I think I have cycling lands in my Dimir deck. It's Ghost and Armex now. It's no longer Dralnu. I believe I have cycling lands in that deck because, of course, I'm in a cycling theme. Or I'm in a discard theme, right? So I can get a trigger off my Archfiend of Ifnir by cycling a land. Great. For me, only monocolored. I only have room in my monocolored decks for like that. I do like drawing a Tranquil Thicket off the top of my library on turn 8 when I don't need lands. I need something else so I can cycle it away and get something useful. I don't play cycling lands a lot. Again, they enter the battlefield tapped. I don't love that. It is kind of nice in the right situation to be able to cycle them away. I definitely don't play them much though.
Lands.
If you're still
Let's hear his
able to
reason.
off of your opponents, which guarantees you're still having mana, then you could take the risk to spend the 1 mana.
That's not
to
terrible.
spend it to more gas, especially if you have multiple.
That's not a bad reason. You're stealing your opponent's land so you don't need to make land drops. That's a good reason. I like that.
Explosive card draw, but you have to. creep
Yep.
your way up to that. So I
Good thinking there.
checked a couple boxes, and then if
But
you
obviously
need
that's a very
heavily,
specific scenario, right?
Yeah, it taps for a color at least.
I would say.
Again, this is actually the opposite scenario where in green I actually probably would prefer. I think I have both of the green cycling lands in my green deck. Because you're ramping, it's more likely that you're going to have enough lands in play so that you can cycle them away, right?
Go ahead, Domer.
No, I was gonna just say Morgan doesn't count MDFCs as lands, but this 39 lands to MDFCs, I think cycling lands make more sense there because you're just gonna see more lands. So cycling them away is okay.
I know this card's banned in our Commander Clash play group, but seeing how this deck is built with like Archdruid's Charm and crop rotation, it kind of hurt my soul to not see a Glacial Chasm. Like
They have Glacial Chasm banned? That's funny.
Those instant speed land tutors, that card is so incredibly busted.
Yeah. Not a land drop though, right? I mean, again, why are you putting this in your deck? This is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. You're not putting this deck in your deck to cast spells, right? You're putting it in your deck for the effect that you're getting.
Like Phyrexian Tower, we have like sack outlets in here.
Great.
Which seem pretty standard. The interesting one is the soul lands. We all run coffers. Original list doesn't run coffers. Coffers generates no mana.
Sure, again, I made my video about coffers. How I feel about that, I would put it in a 2-color deck, especially if you could tutor for it. Sure, it's obviously great there. Got to get that Urborg play, though, or it's not going to be very good.
So
And I believe I covered Temple of False God in a video recently as well. That's an iffy one for me.
unless you have an Urborg or Yavimaya in the battlefield. So it's interesting we all landed on that. And then Tova and I had the Temple of the False God sitting in here too. You guys, you don't believe in it?
Never,
Seth is
never,
not a
never,
temple-
never.
Oh.
They don't like it.
If
That's
it
funny.
was
I
worse,
just play it. I won't play it. Yeah.
All right, I'll end it there. I think you guys get the gist. You know, their video was over an hour long, and so obviously, if I cover the whole thing, it'll be over an hour long. There's obviously a lot to talk about. I will be making. I wanted to get a bunch of my points out there, and I will be making a similar video on my channel covering these points. So it's kind of good that this is a little bit of a practice for it. So anyway, video for you guys to get my thoughts on Manabases. I hope you took away a lot from that. So again, that combined with the ramping video that I just did, a little snippet that I took from the Deck Doctor, should be helpful for you guys. All right, see you in the next video.